How many people here see referral partnerships as a really vital part of growing most financial planning businesses? Great. Okay. So pretty much most people in the or any sort of advice businesses, right? So most people recognize it's a vital part, but how many people find it to be really hard and just really an uphill battle to get it running? Yeah, it's interesting. And I kind of call this the big conundrum, which is the idea that everybody knows that this is how advice businesses get clients, but everybody's really sort of challenged on how to make it work. In actual fact, one of the interesting parts out of all the research we did is we identified that the average advice professional really has got a love-hate relationship with referrals and partnerships. 65% of them in one study I saw indicated that they see it, they use it to grow their business. They see it as a vital part. There was an AFA study that came out a few years back, which said that the average high-performing business generates, I think, 34% of its business from referral partnerships and 33% from client referrals. So it's a really important part of it. But only 32% of businesses indicate that it's actually a successful tactic for them. In other words, 64% agree it's really important. 50% of businesses out there are failing to do it well. When you ask businesses in these referrals, what's your one biggest marketing idea you suggest? Referrals always comes up, using your existing network. The insight for me is that whilst most think it's a really great strategy, most are really challenged to actually make it work. Does that make sense? And to me, this is kind of an opportunity, because it suggests to me that this is a technique problem. It's an approach problem, which potentially can be solved by looking at the way you're doing it underneath. There's a second part to it, though. I think a lot of the time when it's talking about partnerships, everybody focuses on it as a lead generation thing, and this is your point. It's really good. In actual fact, I think you need to step back and identify it as an opportunity for you to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, heading in the same direction, and with whom you can kind of pool resources, increase your network, increase your ability to get a result for each other, and basically trade around ideas. Jim Rohn, talks about Jim Rohn, sort of grandfather of Tony Robbins. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I really like that, because I think it's true. If you surround yourself with people who are heading in the same direction, it gets a lot easier to make to where you're going. If you're not, it's really hard to do so. And there's countless examples I've experienced. Paul Feeney, really good example of someone who has a really massive personal network and uses it for other things other than just referrals. Greg Cook as well is another person I was speaking to recently everyone knows Greg? Planner in Financial Wisdom, has just become a political candidate, very influential. Again, has focused on building a network for reasons other than referrals, and funnily enough, what sort of followed along the way is the ability to get referrals from those networks because you build up that gravitas. There's a model I wanted to sort of put forward right away to talk about what we're aiming to do, and I think there's 3 parts to getting this right. The first bit is we want to be able to connect with people. Reach out, get a connection, and in doing so, we want to overcome resistance. Because let's be honest, how many people get those emails through LinkedIn? Hey, I've seen you on my network, I'd really like to be friends with you. We resist it, don't we? Why do we resist it? And sometimes the intent's all wrong. I've had one where it's like, hey, I'd really like to connect with you and tell you all about what we do, and it's like, no, that's wrong. Because my answer is, I'm happy to connect with you, but I don't want to hear about this thing you're telling me about. So we've got to connect and overcome resistance. The second thing is I think we want to strategize, and I call that avoiding the friend zone. When the friend zone is where you kind of just get into coffee mode, and it never goes anywhere. We want to avoid that. At some point in the relationship, we want to step forward and say, so rather than just talking about it and drinking caffeine and getting, a lot of fun times, let's talk about how we can work together. Does my sound keep dropping out? Is that just me? Cool. Third thing is we want to collaborate. Work together. In other words, avoid getting burned. Avoid you doing all the work, you putting a bunch of leads through, and instead you doing some work together. If we get it right, if we connect, strategize, we build a true partnership. If we can collaborate and have the right strategy, we want a win-win situation. The easiest thing to do is to collaborate with someone where there's a win in at both ends. The hardest thing to do is when there's, one of you gets more out of it than the other. And finally, we want to build a relationship for the short term. We do this right, we get a commitment, and we get follow-through, instead of frustration, i.e. you get something happening at the end of it. And the final bit of the puzzle is you get action instead of potential. So I'm going to take a moment here. Which of those, and shout this out, do you think maybe you haven't been doing as well? Hello, so those who've just joined us, I'll run through it quickly. We want to do three things. We want to connect with people and overcome some of that natural resistance that we have. We want to strategize, and in doing so, avoid the friend zone. We want to work on something. How would we work together and finally collaborate? So it's not you doing all the value creation. Ultimately, you can sit down and talk about doing something together. Create a win-win, a partnership, build a relationship, and get them to commit.